What is the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? Watching 3 kids play tag on the playground. It's against the rules. Teacher thought I was with them. I had to spend recess sitting on a log. Running a meth lab, I wasn't. I had a bunch of chemicals for a photography class that I was student teaching in my locker during my senior year. Someone saw them, called 911. I was pulled out of class by police and arrested. They genuinely thought that I was cooking meth in my locker. Wouldn't let me call my lab supervisor to confirm that they were for class. When the narcotics team showed up, they basically just face-palmed and told the cops to let me go. I got sent to the principal's office in the 2nd grade because during nap time, I would stealthily read a book. A teacher in my school said that Orlando was the state capital of Florida. I corrected him. He raised an eyebrow and said, "I think you'll find I'm right," before continuing. I said, "No, sir, it's definitely Tallahassee." His retort of, "I'm the one with the degree in geography," was met with "then you'd think you'd know" landed me in detention. I'm surprised I had to come down this far to find someone else who got detention for correcting a teacher. I got issued my first detention in the 3rd grade. We had a substitute Englishy teacher who kept using the word persons instead of people. Not in the legal personhood type way, but like in persons drive cars. After about 10 minutes of this, I raised my hand and asked why she kept saying that, because the plural of person is people. It's one of the special ones you don't add an S to. She told me that both were correct and to look it up in a dictionary. So later that day during our assigned reading time, I went and pulled a dictionary from the wall of books, looked it up, and carried it over to her at her desk to show her that our dictionary say person, place, people. Needless to say, in this post I got a detention, but since it was after recess I was assigned to serve it the next day. The next day, when we were released for recess, I tearfully went to my teacher to tell her I couldn't go because I had a detention, and she was shocked. So I explained what happened. She laughed her ass off and sent me outside to play. I got a lunchtime detention for writing too big on the whiteboard. The school provided bus being late. When the teacher who handed out the detentions was confronted by a large number of parents' complaints, she responded with, "Not my problem." My school would make an announcement when they knew a bus would be late. Principal would come over the PA and say something like, "Bus 72 and 16 are late this morning. Please excuse any tardy students." You would think other schools would do it too. Got suspended for responding to the prompt, "What one item would you bring with you if you were a pioneer on the Oregon Trail with a rifle and bullets?" I was in the 3rd grade. Dad took me squirrel hunting on the day I was suspended. Turned out better than expected. Edit. I think it's worth mentioning the teacher in question was only there for a year before the school fired her for the numerous complaints from parents. I was only one of many students she punished for silly reasons like that. Edit 2. No, it wasn't because I said 2 items. One of the rules of the activity is that we could bring additional items if those items were required to make the first item work and wouldn't be very useful on their own, i.e. bullets. I was suspended because she told administration that I had discussed inappropriate matters in class by referencing hunting. I got in trouble for continuing to play tag after they told us we weren't allowed to play because it was too windy. I was given an after-school detention on my 8th birthday for leaving my lunchbox in the playground by accident. In high school, the year I got there was the year they instituted a rule that you had to display your ID at all times while at school. If you didn't have your ID out, you could get detention. Due to reasons, I got to school about an hour before first bell and had zero way of getting back home or getting anything from home, well, until the end of school, of course. So I get to school and realize, oh noes, I forgot my ID at home. Well, no problem, I'll just go to the office and get a temp one. Welp. Turns out I should have tried to make it through the day without my ID because I got detention anyway, and I knew that I had a greater than 95% chance of making it through the day without anyone who cared noticing I didn't have my ID out. But no, I tried to do the right thing. Well, duck you school, you taught me a terrible lesson. I went to an extremely conservative Baptist high school in Guam. I was punished for some pretty insane things. Hair being too spiky, singing Fellas Never Did during Christmas time, too worldly of a song, and getting caught with DVDs of mainstream movies. I was eventually expelled when a group of the super religious students sold me out for drinking a beer at a friend's birthday party on a weekend. At this time the drinking age in Guam was 18. I was 18 when drinking said beer. 4th grade history, talking about the pioneers moving into the American West in the 1800s. The assignment was to come up with a list of things you would pack in your wagon if you were moving 1,000 miles into the wilderness. All of the kids in the class had the usual stuff: food, clothes, medicine, a tent, blankets, etc. A few of us, including myself, had toilet paper on the list because why wouldn't we have it on the list? Toilet paper is a perfectly reasonable thing to pack, right? Anyway, toilet paper offended our teacher's Puritan sensibilities and everybody who listed it went to the principal's office and got suspended from recess for a few days. I got detention for saying okay to my home economics teacher in middle school. Seriously. We were in class and she asked me to do something and I replied, politely, okay. The teacher has a detention board and a day later I see my first name on it. I have a very common name, and, joking with her, went haha that's for me right? She said it was. I asked her what I did, and she said it was because I replied okay to her when she asked me to do something, and she hates when people do that. She just wants them to do it. I was stunned. I told her I wasn't going to detention. I got home and told my mom what happened. My teacher's son was in the same grade as my older sister, so my mom knew the teacher. She ended up calling her, and the teacher apparently was fumbling over her words trying to justify the detention. The next day, she goes to me, "You served this detention right," as a wink wink nudge nudge type of thing. I said no, and I'm not going to. She goes, "No, you served it right." I decided to just say sure and that was that. Not being able to read the teacher's handwriting. Looking back, the whole situation was hilarious, but at the time, he was a tyrant of a teacher and everyone was scared of him. He was writing notes on a whiteboard, which we had to transcribe into our notebooks. One of the sentences had the words glass tube in it. He wrote the SS in a way that it looked like an M. Being young and naive, I asked what is a glam tube. He went mental, shouting at me, and dragged me across the desk by my ear screaming about me not being able to read, and shouting glam tube. I'm sure it ended up in a detention for me. Less than a year later he was dismissed as a teacher from the school due to anger issues. I was flirting with a girl I'd known since we were 4. Special needs kid got angry and punched me in the face. I got suspended for fighting. I got an in-school suspension for not attending an optional assembly. Not only that, but because I was suspended, I got kicked out of the National Honor Society. I had my teacher signed permission to stay in his room. We had a new principal who was trying to establish dominance. I've never hurt anyone, but I really wanted to punch his smug face. In 5th grade I was not allowed to go on our field trip and had to sit in a room alone reading the entire day all because I fought back when another kid punched me in the eye. Duck zero tolerance policies. Little did they know, I love sitting in rooms alone reading. I got morning detention for running my hand against the brick wall in middle school. I was talking to my girlfriend and wasn't paying attention and just dragging my hand along the wall as I walked down. Supposedly the teacher thought I was banging on the walls. Got suspended for throwing paper airplanes in elementary school. Also my little brother's friend is in elementary school, and he got in trouble for sexual harassment for saying this roses are red, violets are blue, no girl on earth is prettier than you. For me, it was whole class detentions. I was always the quiet kid who would get on with work and was rarely disruptive in class. Most of the teachers were well aware of this, but sometimes I would end up in detention because some people were misbehaving and the teacher simply held the entire class back, including the well-behaved ones. It happened quite a few times and I really hated it. The justification was that the good kids would pressure the bad kids. Somehow, how teachers thought a shy quiet kid like me could pressure the class deckheads to keep quiet, I really don't know. I always hated group punishment because I was literally the teacher's pet of every single teacher save 2. K-12. I was the biggest goody-goody you ever saw, and I genuinely loved learning. So group punishments killed me, because I knew that my teacher knew I didn't deserve to be punished. The absolute worst, though, was in the first grade. My classroom was divided into 3 groups of desks. My twin brother and I were frequently the last kids to arrive, sometimes tardy, but you only got in trouble for being late if it was 10 minutes or more. So my desk group had misbehaved before I arrived, and they all received lunch detention. I received lunch detention for being in the group, even though I hadn't been in class when my group got in trouble. My first grade teacher is one of the 2 who didn't like me. The other was my 8th grade math teacher, who hated all the smart kids. I got detention for cheating in a test because my score was too high. I didn't cheat. I just studied. My brother was just punished for cheating too because the words he used weren't 7th grade level. He legitimately did his essay without copying anyone else's work. It makes me angry that teachers do this without any sort of proof. Edit. There. I fixed the grammar mistake. Put your pitchforks down. Exclamation mark. I got jumped, unprovoked by a spiteful girl. I didn't initiate the fight or anything, but I still got suspended for 5 days. Stupid school rules. First year of high school, only been at the school for about 7 or 8 weeks, and I got sent to the focus room, what we called detention pretty much, for wearing black socks instead of blue or white. I went to a public high school, and it was the principal that saw me, and she had to literally get on her hands and knees to check the color. Nothing. My 4th grade teacher was deliberately giving me lower grades for no real apparent reason. My dad actually took a night to calculate the grades I was making with all the homeworks and tests and things I had, and said I was actually making A's and B's. Edit. Now I think about it, this was the same woman that had a problem with me reading ahead and completing tasks in the textbooks we had. I was bored, or just saw things I could already do, mostly. Close bracket. I found out my cousin was considering suicide, so I acquired access to the faculty chat program and contacted my counselor because my teacher would not let me leave. I was able to get the situation resolved, but was suspended because I accessed programs I weren't allowed to. I actually have a great story on this one. In 4th grade, or something, I had this old beach of a teacher we all really hated. Let's call her Catherine, her actual name. So I was hanging out in the schoolyard when some 1st graders came running towards me and kicked me in the nuts with absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I started crying and screaming from the unbearable pain I was in. Catherine comes running and starts screaming at me for making a scene. She starts screaming at a little kid who just got his nuts kicked far up his stomach. So I scream right back at her, and she asks me if I wanted to move this whole discussion to the principal's office. Knowing I was being treated extremely wrong, my answer is of course yes. Catherine ended up getting yelled at by the principal for 20 minutes or so, and I got to go home 3 hours before school ended. Best day ever. A buddy of mine once had 10% of his grade lowered on a report because when he stapled them together, he did it horizontally instead of at a 45-degree angle. I thought that was ridiculous, but couldn't help laughing. Edit. This was in a Los Angeles high school for those asking. Also, RIP my inbox. My French teacher did not like me for some reason I could never guess. Anyway, one day during her exam she came to my desk and accused me of cheating when I wasn't doing anything wrong. So, I protested and said I'm not cheating. She then proceeded to took away my sheet and ask me questions on test verbally. I replied correctly to all her questions. Now that she knew that she got nothing on me, she wrote -5 on my sheet because of me daring to protest. In 5th grade, I had to poo. So I went and pooed. It was a bit of a big one, so it took me some time. When I came back, the teacher started asking me out loud in front of the class what I was doing, that I was gone so long. I said I had to use the bathroom. She then started yelling at me, "You were gone too long, and I won't tolerate screwing around yada yada." She must have been having a bad day, but I got really upset, and I yelled out, "I had to take a sheet, my god." Silence. Detention. My dad came in and when he heard what happened, told me while he was happy I stood up for myself. I probably could have been more tactful. Apostrophe. In elementary school, a friend and I were written up for having a food fight. We were sliding an apple slice across the table to each other. The lunch monitor after school supervisor helicopter parent flipped sheet and started screaming at us and dragged us to the principal. Once I got home, my dad whooped me and it pissed me off pretty good. I mean, I did a lot of dumb shit in elementary school that warranted whoopings, but this one was just dumb. When I was in 4th grade, I was given detention for reading books too quickly. The teacher had divided the books by difficulty, and she thought I was stupid, so she put me at the lowest reading level. Even though I was one of the smartest students in the class, I finished all of the books within the course of about 2 weeks. When I told her that I was finished with them and would like to start reading the more difficult books, she called me a liar and gave me a week's worth of detention, claiming there was no way that I could have read and understood those books so fast. I saw her a few years ago and she was surprised that I'm on the dean's list at my college, let alone at the college I'm attending. I'm graduating from college next year with the intention on going to medical school. I think I can ducking read. Got punished for being punished. Teacher kicked me out because I was a minute late, honestly, so I was chilling outside the class when the principal walks by and gives me an earful about delinquency and indiscipline. Real douchebag, had to stick up his ass at the time and threatened to call my parents. Starts spouting bullshit on the phone, so I interrupted and told him that he cannot speak to my parents in such a way, especially when he is not speaking the truth. Gets frustrated and suspends me for 2 days. I have no idea what was wrong with him, but I enjoyed those 2 days. Age 10, year 5 in England. About 100 of us are sat in the main hall having a music lesson. So she's trying to teach everyone to sing in rounds. I think that's what it's called, where you overlap lines with previous line etc. Anyway, we are doing a part that requires a few of us to sing in harmony, and much like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, she notices someone is singing flat. She eventually whittles it down to me, and in front of everyone she says, "No, it's like this. In C. Me. Teacher. No. Me. A teacher. Right. Well, if you're going to waste my time, I will waste yours." I spent my lunch break standing outside the staff room staring at the floor. I cannot sing. End of. I hate singing now, and I largely blame this on that stupid teacher that couldn't tell the difference between a kid being an asshole and one with no talent. Thanks, Mrs. Hammond.